cameraman is here.
Yeah.
Tell me when
Soco.
you're ready. Right. So I'm here with the good man Kalam from Titans TV. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I can tell you're a very popular guy around here. So just talk to me. I'm not here to critique or to attack. I genuinely want to understand a bit about Kalam philosophy. So you can tell me a bit more about that, and then to talk a bit about our understanding of Christianity in Africa. Okay. So open question.
Yeah.
What is Kalam philosophy? What does it believe? I mean, take that question wherever you want to take it.
Okay, so put out the Kemetic creed.
Kemetic, sorry,
Kemetic,
I can't even.
yeah,
It's
okay,
Kalam
so-
philosophy. Kemetic. Can't even get the word
So
right.
usually I put out a creed called the Kemetic creed, and that encompasses what the ancient Egyptian philosophy kind of stated or said in a very religious format, basically. So somebody who's coming from Islam can kind of understand it. Somebody who's coming from Christianity can kind of understand it.
Yeah.
Rather than just having it vague.
Yeah.
Which usually, when people hear about Kemetic philosophy, it's really vague. Nobody really understands it. So in that, we have something called our Akida, or Aked, which literally means our disposition, or our inbuilt nature, on the things that kind of binds us together. And those are seven things or seven topics, which are theology, cosmology, anthropology, pedagogy, ethics, eschatology. I've missed one thing out, but we'll come back into it, and I'll get it back in again.
All right.
So yeah.
So it's a philosophy. If I understood you correctly, it's a philosophy rooted in ancient Egyptian culture, or religion,
history, yeah,
It's sort of the Toto of Egyptian
Civilization.
Egyptology.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a moral code. It's about
That's
the
right.
internal disposition, and you use to balance those things, the theology, the philosophy. Is that am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. So, there are people here who I think have done you a disservice in that they accuse you of having a problem with Muslims.
Okay.
I mean, comment on that, because I think I have not seen anything that would make me think that.
Yeah.
So please.
Yeah, no, I don't really have no problems with Muslims at all. The only thing that I actually do have a problem with, like number one, is ignorance.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And unfortunately, we have 80% Muslims here. And 80% of the times, when we actually have a dialogue with somebody, it's Muslims.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Generally
My
speaking,
experience is the same.
Generally speaking, they do say a lot of things that don't make any sense.
Also
and
true.
then I have to criticize it, and then therefore I look like the bad guy for criticizing it and even correcting it. So you can have a thorough understanding of what your actual religion teaches.
Yeah.
So, but somehow I get labeled the bad guy for it.
And I would have to say that I've seen a similar kind of pattern of behavior from elements of the Islamic Dawah team.
Mm-hmm.
That anyone who makes any sort of critical comments of Islam, they try to libel, they try to ad hominem attack. Rather than engaging with the argument and bringing forth the evidence, they try this ad hominem, disparaging kind of way of behaving, which is really poor of them. But also shows in some ways that they've lost the intellectual debate, or that they've run from the intellectual debate. With regards to Kalam philosophy, Kemetic philosophy, I will get it right, I promise. With regards to Kemetic philosophy, some people suggest that Kemetic philosophy is a black identity movement. Comment on that, please.
Yeah, literally. Well, the word Kemet literally means, in the ancient Egyptian language, which is the Medo Neter, it literally means blackness.
Yeah.
That's literally what it means. If you go in from the biblical framework, you have the three sons of Noah, and his third son is Ham.
Yeah.
That's literally where the word comes, or can come from the Hebrew side of things. That's what it means, literally dark or black.
Yeah.
And that's the indigenous name that the Kemetics, or should I say the people of the land of ancient Egypt, used to call the land mass itself, and used to call themselves as well.
So your argument, your belief is that because you look at Egyptians today and they're not black.
Generally speaking,
So
the northern Egyptians tend not to be black, but the ones in the south.
why are the Egyptians of northern Egypt not black?
Because of the influx of migrations, number one, influx of colonizations and conquering of the land. So you have different time periods. For example, the Persians in 500 AD came in, conquered. You had the Greeks that came in, Macedonians first, which is Alexander, then the Ptolemies, which is the Greeks. Then you have the Romans. Then you have the Arabs. So you have a lot of that taking place. Then you have the Turks coming in. Then the Europeans coming in. So there's a lot of miscegenation that was taking place.
Okay. And to the idea that some would suggest that Kemetic philosophy is somehow a racist ideology, what would be your comment?
Yeah, no, there's no racism. As far as I've seen, there's no racism within inside of the Kemetic philosophy. There is actually a text within inside of Kemet. It talks about the four goods of the Creator. And literally, one of the four goods is that we have created, or I've created man as equal brothers to each other, but it's within inside of their hearts that they've actually, set up this kind of superiority amongst each other.
Yeah.
So from the Kemetic philosophy, it doesn't teach it full stop. It doesn't have anything like that. You had the Greeks under Alexander. He was a Macedonian. He came in. He proved himself to be of a particular lineage and faith. So he was allowed to come in and to rule over the actual indigenous Kemetics.
Yeah.
So, and they adopted the ancient Egyptian culture and customs and so forth. So there isn't anything like that where if you're white, if you're Asian, you can't be Kemetic by philosophy.
So a white man can be Kemetic.
Yes, by philosophy.
An Asian can be Kemetic. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But why? Well, I guess why Egypt? Why not some other region in Africa? Why do you focus in on Egypt so much?
Okay. One of the major reasons why we're focusing on Kemet or ancient Egypt so much is because so much research has been done on it. So much different people's identities or histories and religion has kind of sprung out of ancient Egypt. So it's kind of really like a little bridge to get other people who are coming from religious communities to get back into learning about African philosophy, full stop. And ancient Egypt is one of those key landmarks where you can see the magnitude and the magnificence of an African mind in operation.
Yeah. Now you saw that you talked about the magnificence of the African mind in operation, which kind of brings me on to Christianity in Africa. Well, how do you view Christianity in Africa? What's your perception of it?
Christianity in Africa, to be honest with you, I would even say Christianity kind of had an origin in Africa.
Go on.
Why do I say that? First of all, you had Jesus, Yeshua. He actually had to travel into Egypt for a certain period of time.
Yep.
Some people say that he was well studied and learned in Egypt. Yep. Came back, waxed wise in wisdom, and it was actually confounding the priests and so forth in the land.
Yeah.
Of Jerusalem and so forth. And there's a lot of other research that's been done to say that based upon his words and what the Bible is saying, they had quite a closeness or an affinity with the Essenes. And Essenes as well were said to be, obviously they're in the Qumran mountains and so forth, but they also said by Tacitus and others, I can't remember the names, I might have to just go back and research and give it to you properly. But they're also said to be an Egyptian Jewish, I don't want to use the word cult, but community basically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of roots that ties back into Egypt.
Right. So I agree, certainly that Christ went to Egypt.
Yeah.
He was raised initially in Egypt, but still left as a small child, because it talks about him as a small child being in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. So his time in Egypt was for his early formative period. Mm-hmm. And certainly the connection to the Christian faith is long-standing. I think lots of people aren't aware of this or are perhaps ignorant of it, that at the exact same moment that Christianity was growing in Europe and becoming a white man's religion, it was growing in Africa, in Egypt, and becoming a black man's religion, and in Ethiopia. We've got the Ethiopian eunuch
that went back
in the Book of Acts. Yep. I mean, he's not going to be a white guy.
Yep.
And we also have the fact that the Apostle Matthew went to Alexandria and established his bishopric. I've messed up my English. Episcope in Alexandria.
Matthew or Mark?
Is it Mark? Matthew.
Okay, I thought it was Mark.
No,
okay.
it's not Mark.
Okay.
He goes to Alexandria and establishes the apostolic faith there, and that he is considered by Coptic Christians, who have a history as long as anything in Europe. It's an established African church, as long as anything that you can find on the continent of Europe, and they consider him the first pope of the Coptic Church. So at the very same time that Peter was becoming Pope in Rome, Matthew was becoming Pope in Egypt, and that the Coptic Christians were an authentically African church. Now, the Islamic, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Just
I think I'd have to go and just check up certain things, but so far I agree with you. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of people try to make this argument that Christianity is a white imperialist, colonialist imposition.
Yeah.
on
I
Africa.
would disagree with that. I'd have to disagree with that. A lot of the biblical writings, like Clement and other, particular authors, like the early church fathers,
Yeah.
they were all writing from Egypt. Most of the papyruses and the material that we have got about Christianity and the early Gospels and so forth are coming from Egypt. So I'll have to disagree with that. I think the problem is not the origins of Christianity, it's the later Christianity where the majority of West Africa received Christianity.
Yeah.
Of course, there was Christianity going on in Africa prior to that time period. It was in, as you quite rightly said, in Egypt, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, other
Somalia.
regions, Somalia, possibly, yeah. There's quite a lot of different areas, had Christianity from way before. But I think the major problem is the Christianity that came in West Africa via the slave trade. That's
via the slave trade.
So,
And that's an important thing that I think we should talk about.
yeah.
There's no denying the horrors of the slave trade. There's no denying its villainy. But Western liberal elites seem to only want to tell one part of that picture.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I have no problem disparaging the slave trade. I'm not going to try and defend it in any way. But it seemed, what would you say to those liberals who are silent about the Arab slave trade of black Africans?
The Arab slave trade was, for me, it was the worst form of slavery that took place. Why do I say that? We don't have the numbers and the how can I put it? We don't really have the numbers and the records of these people that were slaves. The reason why, most of them were actually castrated. So they didn't have the opportunity to reproduce.
Yeah.
And that was obviously forced on them. Not something that they consented towards.
Yeah.
So personally, although I'm not an advocate for slavery,
Of course.
I would rather have my chances, in a European slavery where I know I have the opportunity to kind of fight for it, to get my freedom, and to actually reproduce and have children, than my lineage just being cut off straight away.
And do you know much about what's happening in Sudan?
I've heard a few things that's taking place in Sudan where the Christians are being enslaved. The Christians and the Nubis actually are being enslaved by the Arabs, or the Sudanese Arabs, basically.
Yeah, the Arabized North for many years now have been attacking the Christian South and literally taking black children, black women, Christians and animists to be slaves in the North.
That's right.
I mean, there are Christian ministries dedicated to trying to free those slaves. But the so-called Islamic system that is meant to free them doesn't seem to be working because, there are still slave markets in Khartoum. You also have it in Chad.
Yep.
Unofficially, it still exists in Yemen. It still exists in Saudi Arabia. And yet the liberal elites don't have any comment about it. They don't have any comment about it. Now, as a Kemet, as someone who as someone who has this connection to an affinity to Africa, and obviously as someone who's got heritage connected to the slave trade, what do you think that Kemets, Hebrew Israelites, the Nation of Islam, and these other kinds of groups can say into that situation?
Personally, I think we need to have some type of summit where we all can kind of unite and actually address the problems that Africa is actually facing and see what we can actually do to, number one, cause awareness towards this problem itself, and how can we raise the finances and resources to go into these countries and actually liaise with the governments and so forth to actually put an end to these types of practices that's taking place.
Yeah. You mentioned about Christianity being introduced to West Africa through the slave trade. Now, that particular process is undeniable.
Yeah.
The Christian colonialism and the missionaries went with the colonialists. In terms of African spirituality today, particularly African Christianity today, what are your thoughts on the sort of modern West African Christianity that we see? And I'm asking that sense in the good, the bad, and the ugly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Let's start with the good.
Let's start with the good.
And then the bad.
Yeah,
and
the good. Number one, the good is the community. That's number one. The morals it teaches. It really has. It really keeps. For me, I've been amongst it and know more about it. That it kind of keeps the children away from the secular world, and that to me is a very good thing. That's a very good thing. That's number one. So the morals, the let me think. What else can I say that's good about Christianity?
If that's the only thing that you can think of, that's fine.
There's other things that the leadership within inside of the church, where the youth can actually have an opportunity to have a voice, can reproduce their talents and all those types of things there. I have to give it to Christianity, or the Western African Christianity that's over here and over back home as well. The bad things is the white supremacist ideologies that they subliminally have and preach and teach to their congregation.
Give me an example of what you mean now. So that's obviously controversial.
Yeah. So for example,
by the way, as a white guy, I'm not offended by that.
Yeah. So majority of the time, if you go to your auntie's house or your grandma's house and so forth, you usually see a white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus. Okay, and that there sets up a type of superiority, where subconsciously we're looking at white individuals as being good, pure, and holy. I know that's East Africa. We're talking about West Africa right now. So in West Africa, unfortunately, that is what we have.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I'm shocked by that. Yeah. I really am. And the brother mentions a good point about the imagery of Ethiopian Christianity presents Christ as being black.
That's right.
And the imagery of Middle Eastern Christianity presents Christ as being olive-toned skin. And I've been to Japan, and in Japan they present, believe it or not, Christ as Japanese in tone.
Yeah.
And down to the characterization of the eyes.
And I would have to support that, because you need to see, if you're going to imagine a godlike figure, you need to see it in your own image.
Yeah.
So I don't have no problem with a white person having a white Jesus, black person having a black Jesus, Chinese person having a Chinese Jesus. That, to me, that is good. That helps you to
contextualize the belief.
Yeah, literally. So, but the problem is when as black people, dark as night, we have this blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, and we're worshiping this blonde-eyed. I'm like,
but
why?
do you see that as a problem with Christianity or a problem with colonialism?
Colonialism. Yeah, colonialism. We have to actually separate. We have to accept. No, let me not even say Christianity. We have to separate the teachings of Jesus himself versus what Christians do and what the Christian world does. So those are different. Those are different things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, and in terms of we said that was the bad, and what about the ugly?
The ugly.
Or is it going to be the bad? Same as the bad.
Let me think. The ugly. Do you know what? Yeah.
I can tell you what I think's ugly about West African Christianity is too many African churches buy into the idea of a prosperity gospel.
Yes.
They push a prosperity gospel. They present the idea that Christianity is about your personal blessing, whereas really it's about an identity rooted in the apostolic and prophetic teaching, that it is about being a people that worship the one true God, and that we live a life that gives glory to God in the way that we live. And I think there needs, and also the division as well. There's a lot of division.
Yes.
It's like every man sets up his own church in Africa.
Baptist, Pentecostal,
not even
celestial.
That. You've got the prophetic word of such and such a prophet who's, and it's almost like in places in African Christianity is being commercialized.
Yes. 100%.
As a way of getting rich.
Yes, 100%.
And I think that is ugly. I think that is bad, and I don't think it does our faith any favors. Much better is that deeply rooted tradition of Ethiopia, that deeply rooted tradition of Egypt, that has an apostolic tradition that is about the formation of the inner man.
That's right.
In much the same way that Kemetic philosophy is
That's
about the formation of the inner man. You know? And what it would be interesting maybe when we come onto Titans TV is to explore that a bit more.
Yeah.
You know, this idea of the authentically African Christianity of the Coptic and Orthodox Church that predates colonialism.
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
and maybe you could do a bit of research, I could do a bit of research, and then we could put a program together.
Definitely. A lot of our wrestlers as well, that is what they cling on to.
Yeah.
They've kind of thrown away the Western Christianity,
Yeah.
and they've adopted the Orthodox Ethiopian Christianity.
And I'd applaud them for
Yeah.
it. You know, belief in one God in Trinity, holding to the traditions of the apostles.
That's right.
I mean, we'll have to maybe save talk about Rastafarianism as a separate doctrine
Yeah, so-
for later, you know?
Definitely.
Maybe when I'm speaking to a Rastafarian. You know, I just want to
Yeah.
say, Kalam, thank you very much for
It's a
taking
pleasure.
the time, just giving us that brief introduction
Yes.
to Kemetic philosophy.
Definitely.
At some point, I'd like to sit down, maybe get a bit more info. If you've got any links, you can send them to me. And I would like to maybe debate you about it,
Okay, cool.
like more critically.
Yeah.
You know, in the sense that I am a Christian and I am inviting people to Christianity.
Yep.
But that is not today. I just wanted to understand a bit more. But there is one last question I want to leave you on.
Okay.
What are the authorities that Kemets go to extract their beliefs?
The authorities. Wow. Okay. That there is covered in number 5 of our Kemetic Creed, which is our pedagogy. What actually leads a person or leads a child, basically. And number 1 thing is what we consider to be called medonecha. Medonecha literally means the words, the voice, the expressions of the divine or nature. So number 1 is nature around us.
Yeah.
That's the number 1 thing that we go through as our authority. Number 2 thing is actually the words, the words. Medonecha is also the language. So the literal words that's inscribed in the temples, the pyramids, the papyruses, the tombs, all of those things there. That is the next step that we go to.
Yeah.
And from then onwards, we then go into what we will say our priests or prophets would be, and scribes and scholars. So we have a lot of scholars within inside of this realm or this era. We have people like Anthony Browder.
Don't expect me to know any of these names.
We have people like Anthony Browder. We have someone like Dr. Ben. We also have Asa Hilliard. We have quite a lot of Kemetic authors like Moalana Karenga as well. So we do have a lot of authors and scholars in this time period as well.
Do you mention priests? Do you have any priests today that you can name, or
So,
are you not?
Yeah, we have priests depending on which school of thought you belong to in terms of Kemet.
Okay.
You have somebody like Jabari Ozazi.
Okay.
You have somebody like what's his name now? The author. He's an author of Medonetta.
I'm rubbish with names as well. If it doesn't come to you, it doesn't come to you.
Amun Nefura. Something like Amun Nefura. Let me just say that. I know that's the wrong name, but it's very close to it. But if you type in Metu, M-E-T-U, Neta, N-E-T-E-R, you'll find his name attached to it as well. So those are some of the priests.
So thank you very much. Okay, we'll leave it there for the time being.
Definitely.
And at some point in the future, we're going to have a debate once. I'm going to go now away and use this video to do a bit of research about Kemetic philosophy.
Definitely.
And then, God willing, at some point in the future, I'll come back and I'll have a more critical debate with you.
That's cool.
Respectful, of course.
Of course.
I want to thank Kalam, non-racist, non-Islamophobic, nice bloke of Titans TV, taking a moment to come and speak with us.